Big controversy right now after a Muslim advocacy group plans to march on our nation's capital, and they'd like to do that on September 11th of this year. 12 years since the tragic attacks that killed nearly 3,000 people. The organizer of the so-called Million Muslim March says that Muslims are actually the ones who have been repeatedly victimized since that day. Here he is making his case with Sean Hannity last night.
This is 2013. And if you look at the event, what we put there, exactly the day of 9/11, we Muslim become villainized and victimized. And it's not us and them, it's we as American.
It was a very feisty exchange last night on Hannity, and David Webb joins me now, the host of the David Webb radio show on Sirius XM Patriot and a Fox News contributor, and Leslie Marshall is a syndicated radio talk show host. Muslims have been victimized and villainized, he says, David, and they feel that that's the day they need to make their point on 9/11.
Well, and I mean, let's put this in perspective, Martha. Not all Muslims are terrorists, but on 9/11, they were all radical Muslims. When you look at Ansar al-Sharia, al-Shabaab, Boko Haram in Nigeria, and all these groups around the world, and even what's happening in Egypt today, we do have a problem. So they're trying to send a message. And Rabbi Alam, who, by the way, is a truther, this is someone who believes that no Jews were killed on 9/11. What is his real intention? By the way, good luck getting 1 million people into Washington, D.C. on any day for any group. Right now, they have very few on Facebook. This is yet another attempt to draw us back into something where they're sending a message on 9/11. And you know what? I support their First Amendment right. They have their First Amendment right to free speech. Muslims are not persecuted in the U.S. They can practice their religion. Here, we don't burn mosques like they burn churches in Egypt. We actually have freedoms. They just want to impose their version. And who needs more First Amendment protections? It's the First Amendment. Yeah. It's here.
I agree with you. I would be shocked if they can pull this off, and my bet is that this is a way to get a lot of attention for their group. But Leslie, it strikes me if they feel that they have been victimized and villainized because of what happened on 9/11, then shouldn't they direct their anger and their rage at the people who put them in that position and separate themselves from those people and speak out as Americans, which he suggested he would like to do? Shouldn't that be the focus?
Well, I think that's exactly what they're doing by having this, and although I wouldn't have selected that date myself, it certainly is to have attention and to draw that attention. I think a lot of Americans do forget some of the incidences. Arcadia, California, a man was shot who was a Christian. He had 16 grandchildren. There was a little girl who was missed by a bullet in a mosque in Texas. These are all things on September 12th. My own mother-in-law, who is an OB-GYN here, now retired, who delivered 3,800 children in a small Florida town on September 12th. Her home was vandalized, and she was refused service at the local Walmart and had to move out of that small town, quite frankly, to retire. So I think that many of us, because it wasn't a headline, don't realize the persecution that many Muslims in America have felt. And when you talk about them speaking out, I totally agree, but they have. The problem is a lot of the media has not covered it, to be quite honest. They'll say we'll stage a march, or we'll have some kind of a press conference, and people won't show up from the mainstream media.
If a Muslim,
David,
if moderate Muslims
Leslie, I understand
speak out
and appreciate your
Sorry.
comments completely, but when you look at the material on this group, there are truthers within this group. I don't know if this group is the group that you want to make the statement that the people who have been treated in the way that you're talking about want to represent them. David, go ahead.
There are prominent Muslims in America. I've worked with many of them for well over a decade now, closely. They speak out. If a group of moderate Muslims, or what I call westernized Muslims who want to live peacefully in our society, come out and speak, they get the coverage. The problem is they get vilified in their own community. So, America can't, the non-Muslim world can't solve the Muslim world's problems one and all. They have to work within their community. This is an attempt like the Ground Zero Mosque. It's all part of pushing an agenda, and these truthers are, well, they're false. They don't represent the larger group of Muslims in the world, but we really have to realize that if only 10% of the Muslims in the world are radicalized, and that's the argument often used, that's 1.6 billion people. 10% of that, largest standing army in the world. Let's recognize the problem and deal with it, not have the silly arguments. And again, you know, good luck with 1 million people. They've got, what, 5 on Facebook, maybe 10 now, maybe 15 after this.
It looks like it's an uphill climb. Leslie, would you like to see a Muslim group, a moderate Muslim group, come out and condemn this and say, wrong day, this is a tragic, solemn day in American history, and if you want to make your point, this is not the day to do it?
Well, I wouldn't have a problem, with people coming out and saying that. But I want to speak to David's point about the 10% versus 90%. And see, that's the problem. You know, I've lived in Pakistan. I've lived in Israel. I've traveled to Jordan, Egypt. And I think the United States does. Many Americans have a misconception that the majority of the Muslim world hates Americans, which is not true, and that the majority of the Muslim world are terrorists and they're training their children every day how to kill Americans, which is completely untrue. What this man has said that I do agree with, it is we against them. It is not you against us, and many people in the Muslim community do feel that way. The other thing is, a lot of Muslims I have spoken to are fearful to come out and say anything. They don't want to attract attention to themselves because they don't want people attacking their businesses or their homes or their families. They're very frightened, many of them, since 9/11, and that's made them become a bit more close-lipped about their opinions, whether it's about this group or whether about terrorists. They feel that anybody who does terrorize or murder is not a Muslim, just like Christians denounced Timothy McVeigh calling himself a Christian, because any religion, the big three, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, all believe in the 10 Commandments, one of which is thou shalt not murder.
Martha, I've got to answer this because Leslie makes a very wrong argument here. It's not a matter of what percentage it's radical, it's the effect they can have. And when it comes to those that are being taught to be radicals, raised and trained from ages 8 and 10 up, this is a problem. And I don't see Christians burning mosques. I don't see Christians running after Muslims in this country. If they come out and speak, they're vilified by other Muslims in large part. I'm not saying that there aren't. There are idiots out there in the world. That's a fact, but not a Christian-Muslim issue in this country.
David, you've had yours, and we'll pick it up at a later date. Thanks so much to both of you.
Thank you,
Good to have you here.
Martha.
Good discussion.
Thank you.